Hello everyone. Today is March 10th, 2020, and we're going to be doing some reflections on Luke 16, 1 through 18. You ready? Jesus told this story to his disciples. There was a certain rich man who had a manager handling his affairs. One day a report came that the manager was wasting his employer's money. So the employer called him and said, "What's this I hear about you? Get your report in order because you're going to be fired." The manager thought to himself, "Now what? My boss has fired me, and I'll have missed a line here. Boss has fired me, and I don't have the strength to dig ditches, and I'm too proud to beg. I know how to ensure that I'll have plenty of friends who will give me a home when I'm fired." So he invited each person who owed money to his employer to come and discuss the situation. He asked the first one, "How much do you owe him?" The man replied, "I owe him 800 gallons of olive oil." So the manager told him, "Take the bill and quickly change it to 400 gallons. "And how much do you owe my employer?" he asked the next man. "I owe him 1,000 bushels of wheat." "Here," the manager said, "take the bill and change it to 800 bushels. The rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd. And it is true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of light. Here is the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then, when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. If you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you're untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. The Pharisees, who dearly loved their money, heard all this and scoffed at him. Then he said to them, "You like to appear righteous in public, but God knows your hearts. What this world honors is detestable to God. Until John the Baptist, the law of Moses and the messages of the prophets were your guides. But now the good news of the kingdom of God is preached, and everyone is eager to get in. But that doesn't mean the law has lost its force. It is easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the smallest point of God's law to be overturned. For example, when a man divorces his wife and marries someone else, a man who divorces commits adultery, and anyone who marries a woman divorced from her husband commits adultery." Okay, so let's jump in. First, again, I'm just a student, not a scholar, so take it with a grain of salt here. I think it's my belief that the parable or the story that he's using is describing, the manager that he's describing is the Pharisees, and the employer then would be God. So the Pharisees basically were working for God, and because they were his religious leaders, or some of them. I don't quite understand the relationship between religious leaders, Pharisees, Sadducees, but I know they were all important people in the Jewish religious culture, and they were considered leaders. So they were working for God, but they were basically wasting his money, wasting his resources. And I think it's kind of interesting that he says, "I don't have strength to dig ditches and I'm too proud to beg," which to me is like saying basically they don't have any skills with which to make money other than the religious services that they have been providing, which really haven't even been a service. Actually, God has been their provider, even though they were taking advantage of him. And if I'm honest, God has been my provider my whole life, even when I take advantage of Him. And I just want to be awake to that, and I want to be becoming more aware and letting Him change those areas, because that's not how I want to live towards Him and in Him and Him in me. So my personal thought on this, interpretation on this, is that the Pharisees, basically, as they were leading other people religiously, made them believe that, indirectly by their thought leadership, that they didn't have to pay their whole debt to God, which was their true and complete self and true repentance of the inner state of their heart. And the Pharisees kind of interfered with people's understanding of what was truly owed to God, kind of like the way that this manager changed people's bills and made it look like they didn't really owe as much as they did, and kind of cheated the employer in that way. And then when we go down a little more, it says, "And it is true that children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than their children of light." Okay, here was a new thing that hit me this time. And I've spent a couple days in this passage. It was really heavy, and I think I had a lot of misconceptions. I don't know. I may be conceiving now. I don't know. But this is how it strikes me now. It strikes me that he's saying, when he says the children of the world are more shrewd in dealing with this world, I think he's talking about, including in that, the Pharisees, because of all the people whom Jesus comes down hard on, they get it the worst. I think they would be the people that he would describe as the children of this world. Ironic as that would have seemed in their culture, because they seemed like they were to be the people of God, but they were actually the children of this world. And so then it says, here's the lesson: use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you to an eternal home. So this is a bit baffling, has been a bit baffling to me, needless to say, but I guess part of what I think I'm seeing here is the contrast between the way that the Pharisees used their resources, which was to benefit themselves and to make themselves, their external appearance, look good, and also the manager misusing his money to benefit himself. It might have looked like he was building friendships because he was reducing their debt, but that was all based on a lie, and his whole intention was not to benefit other people, but to benefit himself. So true friendships, when it says use your worldly resources to benefit others, that's truly benefiting them, and especially their eternal destiny. And if you have any other thoughts on what that means about making friends, I would love to hear that. Let's go on to the next part where it says, if you are faithful in little things, you'll be faithful in large ones. If you're dishonest with little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you are untrustworthy with worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you're not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with your own? So a few things in here that I think are interesting. First of all, I'm looking at the point that says, but if you're dishonest with little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And this makes me think about, really, you can look at like white lies and deceits, certainly included in there, but going even a level deeper underneath that is, what is the state of my heart? Is the state of my heart a true state of integrity, where what I try to lead people to believe, whether that be with words or my facial expression or things I don't say, is that really and have integrity with what I'm thinking inside? So, I believe that the more that Jesus comes into us, the more that integrity will become very natural. And that's how he was. That's what's so cool about him, is how much integrity he had and how he really represented his true self with people. And it says, if you are untrustworthy with worldly responsibilities, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? This makes me think of what Dallas Willard talks about with basically, if we aren't using his resources well, if our life is about ourselves, and if our inner thoughts and our heart is driven by ourselves and our own thoughts and ambitions, which I know mine has been and is still moment by moment struggle every day, then why would God give us more spiritual power? Because if I'm using whatever resources I have now, be it my thoughts, my money, my life, my time, my resources, if I'm using those to better myself, to further myself as a separate entity from God, on my own self-ambition, what am I going to do if God gives me more power and answers, if I'm asking for opportunities with him, he gives me those, what am I going to do with them? I'm going to use them on myself, like I do the other things I already have. And as long as I am about me, and I'm not completely lost in him, then I'm not trustworthy, because anything he puts my way, I'm going to use about me, towards me, and what I think is important. And then it's kind of interesting on verse 12 where it says, and if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? I'm not sure I get this. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's talking about how the Pharisees actually drove other people away from God. They had the chance to help other people find God, and they didn't. Instead, they actually kept them from finding God. It was the exact opposite of what needed to be done. And so why should they be entrusted? Even in their own hearts, they couldn't be entrusted with their relationship with God. I don't know. Even saying that out loud, that doesn't feel like it quite jives with that. So again, let me know if you have any thoughts on that. And I've been thinking about my own heart and how I don't feel like I'm trustworthy with people I love. That in my mind I'm judgmental and I'm critical. And, recently I had a friend pull me aside and basically say, you said something recently about my people that was really judgmental, and it really hurt me. And of course I apologized, and I was so thankful that she told me, because like I told her, you have only seen my true heart, and that is the true struggle that I have, is judgmentalism. And God is helping me with that, but I'm so thankful that you pointed it out. And since she said that, I'm really trying to take seriously that call to action. It's kind of like the money changers when Jesus found the money changers in the temple I think that was yesterday's vlog, and he flipped over their table of coins to stop the things that were not going God's way. I kind of feel like that's a little bit of what that was for me, that God was saying, this isn't right, and this needs to change, and he was trying to get my attention. And it's easy for me to say to myself, yeah, that needs to change, but then not to get seriously, ruthlessly looking for how I'm living that out in ways that I'm not even aware of. Things that I say in front of my kids, or ways that I treat my husband when I get critical and judgmental, even to him. Sometimes I feel like if I'm close to someone, that somehow dismisses me from not loving them and treating them well in my heart. So, why would God want to send any more responsibilities my way when I can't even love the people I know well? So I'm really praying that God will keep showing me my true heart and purifying that I won't be judgmental, that I will because for me, the bottom of judgmentalism is about me, my own ambition and ego and pride, and finding problems with other people. At the end of the day, is probably about making myself feel better about myself, which means I'm getting my significance from how people and myself esteems me instead of from God. So I just want to release all of that. That my significance just completely comes from His love for me, and it doesn't matter about comparisons and goodness and badness and this is better, that's not good. That's just so stupid and petty. So let's move on. At the next down a little bit, you cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. And I feel like enslavement to money is really an expression of being enslaved to ourselves, because we want to use our money for our own purposes and our own things that bring us significance, whether that be comfort, status, security, power, convenience. And I believe that enslavement to money, and thus ourselves, really demands our despising God, because God asks for everything, the total death of self, and just jumping into the river of who He is. So let's see, going on over here, it says, what honors the world is detestable in the sight of God. And, I think that ties into to what I've been wrestling with judgmentalism. That I didn't read that right. What this world honors is detestable in the sight of God. I think this world honors judgmentalism. I mean, not, the current phrase, don't judge me. Well, why is that even a phrase? Because we're always all judging people. And even when we say that, we know we're going to be judged. We know because we judge each other all the time. I would be foolish if I thought I wasn't being judged, because that's just how our minds works. That is what we honor, not by giving lip service. We give lip service that we shouldn't judge each other. We honor it by living that and demonstrating that judgmentalism in our conversation. It's just like wildfire. And then I think this last part is so interesting, and I don't even know if I get it, but I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about it. It says, but okay, I have to pause. I was just having dinner with some friends the other night, and I was telling them a little bit about myself, how I have an incredible capacity to get lost and disoriented. So like if I come out of a store, I may not really remember which direction I came in, but that is unfortunately intertwined with a capacity for this sense of confidence that is totally unfounded. So I'll march out of the store and I'll take off in one direction as if I know where I'm going. And I probably think I do know where I'm going, but I don't. And whoever's with me is like, oh, she knows where she's going. No, I don't. So that's what I'm saying with this stuff. Like, I'm just telling you my reflections. That doesn't mean they mean anything or are worth anything. So, take this between you and God and see what He says to you. Okay, back to the content here. Okay, where it says, but that doesn't mean that the law has lost its force. It's easier for heaven and earth to disappear than for the smallest point of God's law to be overturned. So, and this one has kind of caught me a little off guard too. But thinking about it, I think that this is about, I'm thinking that this is saying that the laws of God are really similar to the other laws that He's laid out that we can see, like the laws of nature and science and math. Like, if the whole world went away, went up in fire, would math and the concepts of math be gone? No. We don't need this world for those concepts to exist. 2 items and another 2 items are always going to be 4 items, I think. So I think that's like saying that the law, I used to think of the laws, like the Old Testament, as just kind of a manual to help people get by and have a better life. And I think that's true. But now I'm thinking it must be deeper than that. Because it's not just like suggestions, it's like the revelation of a spiritual truth that's underneath everything that you can't see. So in the example of marriage, that would mean that when we're united in marriage, that bond, there's a mysterious spiritual bond that goes any deeper than any law can dictate. You can say that they're divorced, but spiritually they were and are married. You can pull the two people apart, but their souls have been bonded. And so, like, they're still stuck together inside in a spiritual way. Just like the math will still be there even if the objects aren't. And the souls will still be bonded even if you pull them apart and take the label off. Because it's a deep spiritual truth, and God made these truths. That's why they are eternal. Anyway, those are just a few thoughts for the day. So I just think this whole section has been incredibly intriguing, and I just praise you, Jesus, for your awesomeness.